Welcome to Do It for the Gram and Enneagram podcast with your host, certified Enneagram coach Milton Stewart, where we do it for the Enneagram, not Instagram. We make moves to improve our lives and those in our community. I am super excited today because we are on a new series called Global Enneagram Series. In this series, I'm going to actually bring to you wonderful, amazing people from around the world who are working with the Enneagram, using the Enneagram in their inner lives and doing inner work. And they are doing a fantastic job because the Enneagram is not just in America, it is worldwide and it's impacting people all over the globe. And I wanted to really bring that into this show with this series. And so I'm super excited, not just because I'm excited, I'm a 7, but I am on this episode with another 7. It is about to be electrifying. Super excited to announce my new partnership with BetterHelp. This episode is actually sponsored by BetterHelp. If you are struggling, BetterHelp can help. You'll receive 10% off the first month when you sign on using betterhelp.com/do-it. So I'm super excited about this partnership that me and BetterHelp have entered into, because in this point where everything that we're doing right now to connect with people is more virtual, it is so important. Mental health, I think that aligns perfectly with things that we're trying to do, things that I want to do, and anybody that I would refer or think that could be potentially beneficial to the audience. And I think BetterHelp is definitely one of them. BetterHelp is basically, it's online counseling or therapy. So you're able to actually get some counseling or therapy depending on what's going on, from licensed counselors and therapists around the country. And you get to be able to get some of that one-on-one mental checkup that you may need. And BetterHelp's able to help you. So just go to betterhelp.com/do-it and you'll get a 10% discount for your first month. I met this amazing person on a 7 panel and she is incredible. And so I'm going to allow her to introduce herself.
Hello. Hi, Milton. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm so glad that you asked me to be on your podcast. It's so very sevenly exciting to be here with you, fellow Selfpres 7. So for me, I'm a woman, as you can tell. My name is Marcella. I'm from Italy originally, but I'm calling in from Switzerland, where I've been living for the past 18-ish years in the French part. So my daily language, French, but I work in English and I speak to my children in Italian. And that's very Swiss, I have to say, where the official languages are 4. The 4th one is a funny language of the mountains, but everybody just swaps from 1 or 2 or 3, but they don't have English, mostly in German. Anyway, I have 3 children, adult-ish, young adults, and I work as a recruitment and admissions advisor for a business school, a big business school here in Lausanne. So originally I'm from Italy. I live in Switzerland, but I've traveled a lot during my youth, 3 years here, 2 years there, 1 year here and another year there, until we finally arrived in Switzerland. It was like, no, I just want some roots now. So it's roots time. And my children actually have absolutely never traveled in terms of life experiences. I mean, apart from travel, touristing, they've only ever lived here in Switzerland. So it's a bit of a funny mix, but I'm hoping that you'll ask me more questions to allow me to give you more details rather than me doing my elevator pitch CV all in one.
Yes, I love that. So we were talking a little bit before this episode. You had mentioned you have been among a lot of different cultures, like tons of different cultures. Can you kind of explain, like, partly how the Enneagram found you? And on the second half, on the back end of that, I want you to talk about how your self-presence 7 has helped you throughout your journey of the different cultures that you've been a part of.
So how the Enneagram found me was a bit of a personal story. So a few years ago, I think about 5 years ago now, I separated from my husband, and I think it was a dance or a do or something. I met somebody else. And this somebody else, who is now my partner, 5-year-old relationship, he's an Enneagram complete enthusiast, but not so much in terms of studying it or, or going in depth into it, as much as the part that belongs to, I don't know if you know about Almas and the diamond approach, the Ridwan school. So from the side of the holy ideas and how that influences you. So of course, when you do that, then obviously you have to go back to the Enneagram and, and then study the system. So he introduced me to that. He's a 6. He's a counterphobic sexual 6. And suddenly he was telling me things about himself. And I was like, oh my God, I was completely fascinated
Yeah.
as to how things corresponded completely to his character. And so I just started reading up, and he had some books lying about at home. And so, you pick one book and then another book, and then, one thing follows the other one. And then you start understanding about the subtypes, and then you understand about the wings, and then it just, once that door is open and, you walk through it, you can't go back.
Nope.
And you can't unsee, suddenly you start saying, oh my God, I understand what it means when people lead from the heart. Yesterday I had dinner, I had some people over for dinner, and it just resonated that one of the people was such a strong heart person. Just the language that they were using, the examples that they were giving. And so again, once you see, you just cannot unsee. And so I'm carrying on. And as I told you before, I've signed up for a teacher training with a school, an Enneagram school from the narrative tradition based in South Africa. So really, again, it's found me, and it's not it's not letting up, I tell
Not
you.
even a little bit. Nope.
Yeah, it's like it's attached. So that's how the Enneagram found me. And I would also like to add that some of the teachers are also quite inspiring. I mean, this afternoon I was listening to Sandra Maitri on a 4, because I suspect one of my friends is 4s, and I just wanted to go back and hear what Sandra had to say. And again, it takes you, according to each teacher takes you then at a different level. So there's this play of depth as well. So for me, that's the beauty of the Enneagram as well, that you can take it at every level. So that's how the Enneagram found me. How has it helped in my sort of 2-part life? The first part, which was very chop and change every 5 minutes, leave a country, move to another country. And then the last 18 years where I've never really moved. I mean, I moved once within this city. My address is Avenue de Court, and the old address was number 6, and I moved to number 7.
Well, look at that. How interesting is that? Okay.
But just to tell you, how, like when I wanted roots, I got my roots. I really didn't move. So the way I tell my story, the way I now tell it with the Enneagram lens, is that when I was traveling as a child, being moved, so to speak, I didn't have a say in it. It was mostly my dad's job. So being moved from one country to the other, I interpret, let's say now with hindsight, that it was my self-pres that really helped me through the few beginning months where it was really about constructing my little cocoon, nesting myself in, wherever we ended up. We had a house, then trying to make my little corner. Where are my toys? Where are my things? Really trying to create that protection around me so that then I could go out first day of school, make some friends. And again, if I use the Enneagram lens, maybe use that sexual instinct that would then come online. But it would come online at step 2. My first priority would be make sure that my surroundings are comfortable and welcoming for me, that I have what I need, that I had my toys, I had my books. Also, I come from a big family. I'm one of 5 children. So that cocoon for me was very much making sure that, my room with my sister was done up properly. So that I could feel safe, really. Basically, that was the most important thing. And so each time we moved, that's how I saw the thread. It was like the first thing was, how is my environment going to protect me? Is it going to be safe and comfortable? And then go out. When we then moved for our last move here in Switzerland, I think it was very much the same thing. At that point, I was very much the adult in charge. I mean, in my previous moves as an adult and not as a daughter, still was the same driver. You know, whenever we moved, we went to Russia, for example, we moved to Germany, or we moved to Belgium for short periods of time. Again, it was make sure the house is done, make sure you know where the supermarkets are, make sure the things that you will need, make sure you know where they are first, and then go and explore. You know, when we lived in Moscow, for example, it was in the early 90s, so there was not much English around. People didn't speak that much English. The signs were not in English. But for me, again, I think there was a play of self-praise with sexual, because the sexual would push me to go, find out where you get the sugar, where you get the bread, where you get the
Right.
milk, where you get the basic necessities. Even if you can't speak, use your hands, whatever it is, but you need to get that. And once that is done, okay, fine. Then I'll learn the alphabet. Then I'll start speaking the language. Then I will, meet the people. We then moved, and that ended up being this long 18-year long move. Again, it was very much about creating the safe space where us as a family could nest in, finding out how the system worked. What do I need to know in order to live here? And who are the people that I need to know? And for me, that was not the social instinct. It was very much the self-pres part. The people are my resources. What are the resources that I need to invest in? Who are the school teachers for the children? Who are the neighbors? Who are the people at the community center where I can put the kids for activities? So sometimes I feel a little bit like strategic. And so that's how I saw my self-pres in action. And now I think after 18 years, I'm still a self-pres, as we joked also in the other podcast. All our self-pres, no matter what number, we all have the toilet paper already, just
Yeah, we ready.
we totally have. So although I still live like that, I also see that stability of knowing my environment, of knowing where my resources are, of knowing where and how I interact with the environment. I think I'm seeing that is allowing that sexual instinct to come through a little bit more, and a little bit more of the social that I would see people not now so much, because I need the network. I already have the network. I just
Right.
like to have them over, because I'm part of a community, or I'm part of a communal garden, so we have meetings that are informal. So that's a little bit how I see. Does that resonate for you? Does that make sense in terms of the Enneagram theory? Because I still think despite the fact that I've now followed the Enneagram for 5 years, I still think I'm always new.
Oh yeah, it's so much, and like you learn layers and layers and layers. When I learned about it starting like 12 years ago, layers and layers, you just keep growing and layers. Like, oh my goodness, I did not know or see that about myself.
Yeah.
What I loved about what you were speaking about was how much you talked about the subtypes and the instinct of how we engage the world. Because I think a lot of times people don't know that much about instincts and subtypes. And so they look directly at the type structure and they don't realize how, I guess, primarily the instinct or subtype is acting before we even get to necessarily type structure.
Yeah, I kind of went the other way around, didn't I?
I'm so glad you said that, because if people just think of generally as like, oh, a 7, they go to a new place, they're just going to go and venture out. No, self-pres 7, we are
Yeah.
going to make sure we're comfortable first. Then we can go out and explore and do what we want. But
Yeah.
it's like so important for us to have, like you called it, a nest, something that we are like sure that can be comfortable, that we can be physically safe,
Mm-hmm.
or feel comfortable and safe. It's like huge. And then get into like, okay, so how do I explore after that? And then something else you mentioned, like we in social instances, like, we seem like very sociable people, all these type of things because of our personality structure. But sometimes it's based on making sure we have the resources we need. So it's like, it's not just I'm looking to be a part of this group just because I love groups. No, not necessarily. It's more or less, okay, what resource can this provide for me or my close-knit family?
Yeah.
So I love that you said that, because that's a beautiful distinction, which I think a lot of people kind of miss. So I love that.
Yeah. And you said, how the instinct colors the personality. I am still a seven. When I'm here in Switzerland, you can imagine that, beautiful mountains, lakes, wonderful countryside. I still get all bubbly and excited and go mental, going, oh my God, I still have that part. And this is one of the cities that I know best from my life experience. And you get me to talk about Lausanne, and I will never stop from the enthusiasm that I can show for the city. So I still have that sevenness of the enthusiasm, the looking at things with excitement and with wonder. And every morning I work from home now. It's been a year, and we still are not going back to work, at least not on a regular basis. And I started biking every day. Again, a little bit of self-pres, I'm taking care of my body, taking care of my health, the emotional health, because I spend all day at home. And every time I go along the lake, and every morning, Milton, it is wondrous. For me, I live this as a seven quality, that ability to wonder at the beauty of things, to be touched, but be touched in a happy way, in that, oh my God, I'm so lucky, it's so beautiful. And that gives me happiness. It's not the foreness of, that intensity. Oh my God, the world, it's so beautiful, it hurts. It's not like that. It's an excitement. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So for me, that's how I live the sevenness. Let's say the number, without the subtype part.
Right. It's kind of like me pre-pandemic when I would go to an airport and I'd be knowing that I'm about to travel somewhere and like have some fun experience. It's just like there is this, like you said, this electricity, this bubbliness. It's like, yes,
Yeah,
oh my goodness, about to go have some fun out here, about to go explore this place, And at the same time, I'm like staying a little bit further from people if I see them cough. And this is pre-pandemic, before I was like, watch out, I'm still doing those things. But another part of me is extremely excited to go explore.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's a skill, if it's a seven thing, but I do like people as well. It's not just the sort of resources. I mean, I've recently read a book. I don't know if you know it, called Quiet by Susan Cain. It's about introverts and extroverts. And I've also seen that I have a part that does like, and I think I see it also as a bit self-pres. At the end of the day, if I'm exhausted, I really love staying at home and reading a book. I don't feed off people, off people's energy. However, when I am amongst people, I'm sensitive to that energy, and I can ride with them. It's like if everybody's going silly, I'm right in there with them. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
so I think I see that as a seven trait as well.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I'm so the same way. I mean, I love relaxing at the house, being able to watch what I want to watch, lay on the bed, do something really comfortable. As you know, I probably have like a really nice blanket on me, which is a really nice material like bamboo, cotton, or like it's bamboo wool, I think is what it is. But like I have all the fabrics. I'm even like, how does it feel on my body type of self-prayers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to just be myself and be around myself and be cool with that. I don't have to go out. But like you said, I still, when I go out with groups and different people, I still can find this energy and this charge from them and be like, "Ooh, all right, here we go. It's game time. Let's have some fun." So that is that interesting balance and that mix that I think
Yeah,
as self-pres sevens we have, which I think is
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Also, the other thing that you made me think of is that ability to, well, already this podcast. I mean, you just launched an idea, and I, without even thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm on. and you did not give me a brief. It was very
Nope.
little. It was like one paragraph, maybe one sentence. And I'm like, yeah, totally, I'm on. That for me is a seven trait, or the ability to run with an idea, like being three steps ahead already. And again, that head part, thinking about it, mulling over it, it all happens in my head. At work, for example, I also run some webinars. So I would interview some of my colleagues as part of the marketing drive for one of our programs. And I don't do any prep work. Well, that's what people think. I don't do any prep work because there's nothing written. I don't have notes. I don't have a brief. I don't write down my introduction, my middle, and my ending. However, Milton, a week before I'm on the air, I've got it all in my head. It comes together. One piece sits here and then another piece here. And then, okay, I'll read the intro that I'll have on paper because I want it to be the same. And then I know that if I haven't said it, make sure that you say it at the end because it might not be appropriate for that. But it's all happening. It just isn't written. And for me, that's a 7 trait as well, that people don't see that I am working. I just don't show it because it's all mental.
Ooh, I love that, because that is, I love the way you explain that, because there is a preparation for 7s in when we are doing things or projects, but it's all mental. And I can definitely say that that is a heavy component of my life that really, it helps. I have to be careful because when the project gets so big, I eventually have to bring out stuff.
Yeah.
But many things, our brains have the capacity, the way that it moves and the way things happen, that we can mentally really create our own type of agenda in a way that when we go to present something, that we know exactly what we're going to say, we know how to communicate it. All these things, they kind of come together in our brain where we can do it. I struggled in math because I never wrote it down. I could get the answers, I knew how to get to the answer, but it was we need to see how you got it. I was well, come on, the answer is what matters, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And I see myself being, for example, if I have an original structure in my head that I want to follow, I can change it immediately if the person that I'm interviewing doesn't answer the question, for example, that in a way that I want them to answer in order for them to fit point 1, 2, and 3. Not a problem. I do not get lost. And I don't know how it happens, but later on in the conversation, I'll bring them round again via another path so that they can give me the answer, so that the audience can get that answer. So the structure is fluid, but the end points always get delivered, but they never get delivered 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, in that order. And I don't know how to explain that. I really don't know how that works.
You're speaking my language, because this is exactly why I invited you on the show, because you speak my language. That is exactly what happens in my head and my brain. It's we will get to the point. I don't have we're not going to go bullet point, bullet point, bullet point and get in sequential necessarily, unless you absolutely have to. But that is exactly how my brain works. It's we're going to get the point out. I mean, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
We're just going to we're going to explore our way to the goal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You'll get there in the end, but it's just, you don't know how that works out. However, part of my job are also some process strong tasks, if I could say it like that, within a team. So that means that we all have to really follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because if you miss a point, or if you're not there and somebody else steps in, they need to know that you've done 1 and 2 already so that they can step in at point 3. And what we have now is we've written it down. One of the team has written these processes down. And for me, at the beginning, it was very frustrating.
Oh my goodness, yes.
but Milton, I have learned my lesson that if you want to work in a team and if the task is processed, you have to follow the steps 1 to 5. That doesn't mean that I don't have the Word document open. It does. It means that I have the Word document. I can't get it in my head, but the Word document is open. And every time I read it, step 1, step 2, step 3, and I follow it. That I can't do in my head. I have to have the paper open.
It's so crazy because you're in my head. You're living my life right now, just in a different country, in a different body, because that is so true. Listen, as a 7, we love our autonomy, We love our versions of freedom, of what we consider to be freedom, depending whether it's actually a trap or it's actually actual freedom. But anyway, we love those things. What's so interesting, even though our energy is light and people generally like our energy, working in teams and groups can actually be a struggle for 7s. I have seen this pattern in multiple 7s and in myself,
Yeah.
I was oh my goodness, I understand the Enneagram, I understand these people, but working in this team right now, my 7 is struggling, like literally.
Totally.
So to hear you say that blows my mind, and I love it so much because we have our own idea of where we want to get to it, and there's an interesting, unique way of that we flow. But like you said, when working, especially any 7 who's listening, when working with a team, we have to have some structure because everybody has a component to play. And our brain is 7s, like you said, like inside of our brains, we get it, what's going on. But it's not always the easiest to communicate to someone else.
Yes. And also, it's not always straightforward because
Yep.
my brain would suddenly just point, and go and ask a completely different question. That for some of the people in the team, they're like, we're not there. We're here. We're on this, we're on point 4. And I'm like,
Right.
on point 8 ABB, and I'm like, no, come back. And the challenge for me is to stop, and
Right.
it's to not voice it, to keep it in my brain or write it down so that when we get to point A, B1 or whatever, then I can mention it. But for the moment, to stay with point 4, and that staying is challenging for me. Like I don't want to dwell on point 4. I'm like, okay, let's go 5 already, which is not always positive because sometimes by staying on point 4, you find out about things that you haven't thought about, maybe some glitches in the system or consequences. Whereas I'm like, oh, can we go to point 5?
I know, right?
Like 6, 7, 8, because I've got something to say about the 8, but the point 8. So, yeah.
So, are there any differences you've noticed in like when you learn the Enneagram, not being like in America, but where you're from, or any just experiences or different overlays that you see from your Enneagram experience?
Well, the interesting thing is that I work in an international business school where I think the whole team I think we're 17 and we've got like 15 different nationalities.
Wow.
So even within the one team, you're working in a little mini world. Everybody comes from a different country. Everybody has a bit of a story like mine, some mix and match of experiences, or is married to somebody from another country. And for me, that's very Swiss. I mean, you have the traditional Swiss person who was born and bred here, but even a traditional Swiss person might have a Swiss German mother, a Swiss Italian father, and they live in a Swiss French part. So it's a bit of a funny
Wow.
country, Switzerland in itself. And the Enneagram is not so big here. There's a little bit of activity in the Swiss German part because they attach to Germany, and there's quite a big community in Germany. Whereas in the French part, they attach to France, but there's very little going on here. And if there is, they come over from France. They give a workshop and then they leave. I haven't been able to find a big, a big strong presence here. That's why the school that I started my course in is in South Africa. And what we're not supposed to do as Enneagrammers is you're not supposed to type people. But again, once you see, how you
Yep.
can't unsee, so you start
Mm-hmm.
saying, oh, that behavior reminds me very much of, that they might lead from point, X. And I have to say, I shouldn't be saying this, I probably won't get my certification if I do, but I have tried to type my office, my colleagues, and some of them seem to me that they show certain behaviors that really strongly remind you of a certain number. And that's despite the culture, despite the fact that
Right.
they speak a different language from me. We have a common English language. Sometimes, with some colleagues, there's the little group of Spaniards, there's the Italians, there's the Swiss Germans, there's the French speakers, and then the common language is English. And then each one of them has their own mix of a story. But that doesn't matter. You can spot a 1 like miles away, especially if they're a clean 1. They're very
Especially
clean.
us at 7.
For a 7, certainly you can spot them immediately. Or, I have a very, very close friend who I suspect leads from 8, and I've been talking about it with her. Do you think about this? What do you think about that? The 8 says this and that, and so it's. I haven't typed her. Just for
Right.
the record, can you please say I haven't typed her, but we've been discussing the time.
Right.
And again, she has a completely different profile from mine, cultural and personal, also not from Switzerland. And it just resonated, with the type, with the eight, and she's now exploring it on her own. So that's my experience. My experience that it transcends the country and the culture. It really is about the way your personality has been constructed or put together to react to certain situations outside. And again, if you connect it to Sandra Maitri and the holy ideas, that is so beyond culture, country, male, female.
Oh yeah.
And so on.
Very, very deep stuff. That series will come down the line, Holy Ideas. That is some open the top of your head and just get ready for stuff to flow in, because it is some rich, very rich stuff. So I have a question. What is your favorite part about being a self-pres 7?
Oh, you should have sent me that one. This one I wish I had prepared now. Now you put me on the spot.
Well, what I can do so you can think a little while, I can speak about just a little bit about what you were talking about before, which is pretty incredible, which is how our type structures transcend our cultures. Even though we're impacted by our cultures, it still transcends them. There's still this amazing, I would say, union that we have with our type structures around the world, which is so interesting. About 2 or 3 years ago, I met a type 7 from Egypt, and this man had more energy. He had to be probably a sexual 7. He was not self-pres, I'm pretty sure. But he had so much energy, and I could just resonate with that energy because I understand it at a core level. And so like you speaking on that, makes it so amazing. I think it's one thing that connects us globally. Like, we don't understand how connected we truly are as human beings.
Yeah.
And I think the Enneagram is such a powerful component of being able to connect us and just show us like how human we all are, no matter where you're from.
Yeah. I think that the demonstration of it, the expression of it could be different. I know I'm going to be stereotyping here, but perhaps the Egyptian person, completely over the top, really super 7, super outgoing, hi everyone, love everyone.
You're right, though.
Whereas perhaps, another culture might be a little bit more tamed in their 7ness. But once, a 7 is a 7 is a 7 is always a 7, wherever that might be, I think. So I'm trying to think while also listening to you was difficult, but I'm also thinking, you asked me, what's the thing that I like best about being a self-pres? I don't so much resonate with the question, what do I like best? I can tell you what I don't like.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that next.
That in a minute.
But what do you enjoy? What do you enjoy most about being?
Well, I think that I enjoy the nesting part, the sort of the being comfortable at home. Very lucky in this flat that I live, there's a fireplace. So that, being cozy with the blanket, as you were saying, in front of the fireplace when here it gets very cold in the winter. There's also a very strong wind that is called la bise that sometimes blows in the winter, and there's nothing you can do.
The wind is so strong, it has a name to it?
Oh, yeah, it has a name. It's called la bise. La bise.
Oh, my goodness.
It blows quite strongly, but it's not a gale wind. It's just a freezing wind. And it's just very, very cold when you're out. Even if you have hat, scarf, gloves, just penetrates everywhere, certainly for a Southern Italian like me. So the best thing is about, going home and just thinking, it'll be snug in front of the fireplace tonight. And I think that's the self-presness that I don't feel that the 7 need or what people might think is a 7 need to go out and party. I just dive deep into the coziness, the nesting part, if you like. And there's always either, I'm not a big fan of marshmallows. I would assume that in America, fireplace equals marshmallows, but I always have some goodie that we can eat in front of the fireplace. So yeah, I think that's what I would say. The snuggling up part in my bed. Lots of cushions when I read. Just making it comfortable and cozy. I'd say that I enjoy about the self-presence.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And like you said, the coziness. I promise I probably have like 8 pillows like on my
Yeah,
bed, and I use them. Not decorative pillows. I don't need to decorate nothing. I'm talking about feeling good and comfortable. I was like, well, this one feels good and better today. I'll lay this way.
exactly. Can I ask you, what do you like about your self-president?
Oh my goodness. Purely being self-pres, it was a question that Elizabeth Worm asked me on the 100th episode, like what comes easy? And it's like taking care of myself. Like it is
Yeah,
easy to make sure I have what I need to take care of myself. I don't have to think about it twice. It's like I know what I need to do and I make sure it happens
yeah,
all the time. So I love that about being self-pres 7. And I have things I mentioned on the other podcast. I mean, I have a tea shop in my house. And by tea shop, I mean, for those who don't know what I'm saying, I have so many organic type of teas from around the world that can help with just about any ailment. I'm basically at a tea shop. And like I almost have a convenience store because I have backup stuff on backup stuff ready for when something else goes out that I can like get rid of. And then I was like, oh, I already got another bottle of this or I got something this. So I
yeah,
love that
yeah,
always. I don't really run out of stuff necessarily, right? It's pretty
yeah.
rare.
Yeah, I think that thinking about that, I think the self-presence as in the role of a mother, of a parent, I think
Right.
I also like that part because for me it was I didn't get distracted. I mean, I used to tell my children, look, it's very basic what I ask for. What's going to happen here? Sleep well, eat well, go outside. Everything else is extra, you know.
Yes.
And they still they still make fun of me. So when they were little, it was that simple. It's we eat on time, we eat good food. There's no snacking between meal times, no eating with hands, like very very simple stuff. We go to bed on time. We have our 8 hours or whatever we need, and then we go outside for fresh air and playing. And I think that really helped give a structure to my parenting
Mm,
when they were little. I worked very little, so it's very much at home and the main carer. And I think that helped me not being distracted. As a 7, I could have gone
right.
into burnout because just as the 3 rules apply to them, they apply to me as well. At the end of the day, after we had, eaten regularly and been out all afternoon, it was time to go to sleep. But it was time to go to sleep for me too. And I have 3 children. I have 3 boys. So it was time, it was easy not to forget myself when as a parent and as a mother and as a main carer, it's so easy to do so. It's per default, you put everybody else forward and then, say, well, what about me? Oh, I want to go out. Oh, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. Whereas I didn't get distracted. And I think I'm thankful. I mean, I see it as the self-pres coming in. And so I'm grateful for that I didn't burn out. I didn't go overboard with activities or with projects or their stuff, my stuff, all 3 of them stuff, and then what about my stuff? So
So yeah, I want to ask a question about the self-pres because you mentioned before, talking about things that, you don't necessarily particularly like or that are difficult as being a 7. Let's start at this point. So our dominant subtype, our dominant instinct, it can be overactive, right? And we can actually get some traits of it that are not healthy. So, in your self presence, what parts of it do you see that's a little bit unhealthy at times?
well, I think that borderline stagnation in the cocoon, it's like it's so comfortable. Why leave? Why go out and meet new people, go and do things so that I see that where then the sexual is repressed, that risk taking, that going out to new pastures, that exploring can get cut down. I know I have that because I know that instinct has served me in the past when I first arrived in Switzerland, I didn't know anyone. It was that fueled my going out, my joining clubs, my joining, kids' activities, taking them, saying, good morning, bonjour madame, bonjour monsieur, so that I could be seen and so that I could cultivate the connection to this new country, to this new city. So I know I have it. I know I have that sexual part, but self-preservation can also drag you down a little bit in like, oh, I don't need to do that, or it's so comfortable staying home, or I only have my little 5 friends, I don't need a 6th one, and so forth. So I think it's important to heed the call when that little one-to-one sexual instinct comes in, knocks on the door and says, no, you do really, want to
Right.
invite that person that you just met over for coffee, you do really do, and I think it was that part when I met my partner. I think it was that instinct that sort of pushed me out there and made me have that conversation, or and invite him. So I proposed that we meet again. Do you know what I mean? So I think it really was my something inside that pushed me to say, reach out, say, propose the next date. And I think with self-pres, it's so easy not to hear that voice.
Great insight. Okay. Does your workplace stink because the culture sucks? Are you tired of tolerating people and wish you could all work together cohesively? Does going to work give you instant anxiety? If you say yes to any one of these, you should probably quit your job. But since you aren't going to quit your job, you should call Kaizen Careers. At Kaizen Careers, we are all about improving personal and workplace performance. We use a unique tool called the Enneagram. The Enneagram helps individuals and organizations become more self-aware. That self-awareness lends into helping organizations with communication, leadership, and conflict management, ultimately turning self-awareness into self-mastery and creating healthy workplace performance so you can improve your services and bottom line. You can reach Kaizen Careers at kaizencareers.com or 901-334-1644. What do you find most difficult about being a type 7, or something that you really work hard on?
Well, again, I can tell you in close relationships, it's just so, it always comes out right there. So the first time that we went on holiday, our first holiday, I said one night, just in case.
Right.
It's like, I'm not doing 2 nights because, what if I don't like it? What if I'm constricted? Like, what's I always had my train timetable. It's like, just in case, I could always take the train back. And we didn't go too far. We just went to Basel, which is like 2 hours away. And then, the next time it was 2 nights, just in case.
Mhm.
Had my train timetable, just in case. So I'm laughing about it now, but when you're in it, there's that tension,
right,
that stops you from just relaxing and just go with, give yourself over completely. And for a while, I always had this kind of exit. Like, where's my exit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can see it. I can always take a train. I can always bus it back, or it's okay if I cut it short. Giving myself permission to say, if you don't like it, you can always leave. And even just that exercise of saying, if you don't like it, you can always leave, almost helped me stay. But it was a learning. It was an exercise. It was also, again, with my partner who speaks the same Enneagram language, I was able to say, I'm having a 7 attack. I want to know, I want to know the train time. He goes, don't worry, honey, I've got one right here. It's like, oh, thank you. So speaking the same language in partnership is also helps, because one of the other traits about 7 is that sense of humor. I think I'm so grateful for that sense of humor that has diffused so many situations, even with my children. And it could be a look, like a funny face. You just look at them going, really? And then it's just like cuts the whole pressure mounting. And so speaking the same Enneagram language and using humor can really calm. Because one of the other things about 7 is the anxiety, that fear, that red, the red thread of fear and anxiety that comes. I think I also have a very strong 6th wing and then self-pres as well. So I'm a very anxious person. And I might receive an email, and even without opening it, I'm like, oh my god, tragedy. And then you open it, it's like, oh, I'm moving your appointment from tomorrow at 3 to tomorrow at 4. I'm like, oh yeah, that was it. So the question was, I can't remember what was the question. What did you do? The 7, but yeah, what do you like least, or what has been difficult for you? Yeah. So this having to cope with always wanting to have a way out, like the limit that in a way it's also good, because you're aware that you want that freedom, you want to be in charge, so you always make sure that it's you who decides. So that's quite empowering in a way, but it's also quite restrictive, because it becomes, you're putting me in a box. You can't do this. I need to leave now.
And when we do that, we end up putting our own selves in a box. It's
Exactly. Again, difficult to say, is it a sevenness or is it my particular experiences? But this leaving, it's not always physical. It could be a shutting down. It could be like, I'm not speaking anymore. That's it. I'm out.
No, that's your sevenness.
That's sevenness. Okay. You're in there. You're in.
Listen, as easy as we can infuse energy into a place, we can suck energy out of a place.
Yeah, I'm gone. So, and all I need is the tone of your voice. And I'm like, I'm not going there. Bye. But my body, will be still sitting on the chair, but I'm just not there with you. And that I've also seen when, again, the sevenness and its avoidance of pain, for example, that for me is another version of this sort of leaving. A very simple example, after a whole year of my eldest being at home, the pandemic, he recently, a couple of weeks ago, left to go back to university. He needs to finish his exams, and then he'll come back here and then sort out the next chapter of his life. But he had left already. We'd already lived through the separation and him living abroad. But then he came back for a year. And then there was that separating again for just 1 month. But it was still a little bit sad. Like, Milton, you see? I'm not going full on there, it's just
right.
even, a little bit is intense enough. But on that day, he didn't exist for me. I'm not going there. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, he's gone. And it was only later when, again, once you know your mechanisms, you'll see it. You'll see that you do it, and you'll see once, even afterwards. You see later that you did it previously. And I saw how it was almost like a severing. He's gone. I don't speak to him. And I was like, well, come on, send an SMS. Did you send a WhatsApp, whatever? Did you arrive safely? Or, let me know when you arrive safely. And that was an effort. But it's not out of non-caring. It's because you don't want to live that sadness. You don't want to go through it. And I did go through it 2 days later.
Right.
2 days later, I just spoke about it. And then tears came. And, it's they were there on the day he left. They just couldn't come out, And I think maybe 10 years ago they wouldn't have come out.
And I absolutely love that you brought this up, because I think sometimes in relationships, or people who have close people who are sevens, they may not understand this, what you just mentioned, of like the avoidance of pain, usually uncomfortable emotional pain to a certain extent, or something feeling trapping. But what happens inside of us a lot of times is not that we don't care or emotionally care. It's like we care actually a whole lot. And
Yeah.
it's really painful for us to be able to go to a place that is so painful for us and feels constricting to us and
overwhelming.
Yes.
So, what happens in my body is not pleasant.
Right.
And maybe for 4, they can go up to level 8, and it feels like they're living, the intensity of the world. For me, I'm like, I'm freaking out at 2.
I know.
Like,
what's going on here?
That is way too much for me.
I love you express that, because sometimes people don't understand. And obviously as sevens, we have to do our work to go deeper inside, right? And touch those parts of us. But for people who, are relationships with sevens, to understand that, they do definitely care. It's just, in order to express that, it takes a lot of work for us. In order to deal, it takes a lot of work. And we have to go towards a whole bunch of stuff that's hard to deal with, especially sadness, because there's so much love, there's so much connection and love, and there's happiness, but there's also sadness in it, right?
Yeah.
And that is painful.
Yeah. And I think, you said have to do a lot of work, but also the people around us have to be certain people. The tears that came out 2 days later were with somebody that I knew I could allow that to come out. And that's not everyone. Not with everyone can I allow that sadness, allow myself to feel it, to show it, and to be okay with it. That takes a long standing, strong relationship. before I could do that. So for me, that's another misconceptions for sevens is that, you're everybody's friend. I don't think, I don't think, you know, I think maybe only 4 people know me. I know millions, I know the whole town. And that's also a self-pres thing because I've met so many people. I can go to any event. Lausanne is a very small town. It's about 146,000 people. So you can go to an event and it's never immensely crowded. But it doesn't matter. I'll always know somebody, I'll always recognize a face. So, but that doesn't mean that they know me. And that there's very, very few people that I show myself to, and that I think is also a misconception of sevens, that we have no depth and we don't have long lasting, how can I say, like build that relationships that build, because we always get seen as butterflies, you see one and then another one and another one, but with a few people you go deeper and deeper, and you let that trust build and develop and pile up, and then you show yourself like little by little, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But a lot of people don't see that part of a seven.
Yeah. So, like you're mentioning something that's so important. We're talking about head types. And because we're head types, we deal all with trust. Like, yeah, we know sixes have a trust thing going on, but sevens actually really do too.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
just comes across very differently because, like you said, many times sevens will have a lot of people in their social network, I would say, right? Say, for instance, you're on Facebook or something, you got like tons of people who are considered quote unquote friends or followers on there or whatever. But in actuality, don't none of them people know us except for very, very, very few. I
yeah,
mean, the
yeah,
circle is really small
yeah,
compared
yeah,
to the number of people who like, oh, I know them really, really well. It's like,
yeah.
no.
And Milton, you were saying about the transcontinentality, the globality of this. When I was doing the course and I was on a 7 panel, and there were these 2 people from a completely different country, completely different life experiences, from South Africa, with all their apartheid baggage, with their all complicated history. When we talked 7, we were talking the same language. This thing about trust, both of them were like, yeah, yeah, so get you, so get you. So for me, there is something about the universality of the system, the Enneagram system that applies cross culture, cross continent, on a much wider scale.
And I think one of the beauties, and we're going to get into, I'm actually a couple questions about some of the work, the inner work you do and things that have helped you. But I think some of the beauty of learning these things is that when we have a hard time trusting other people in different instances, that means we have a hard time also trusting parts of ourselves too.
Yeah,
And that becomes that part. It's like, oh, now I got to look inside. I don't trust that many people, or at
yeah,
least like, oh, what inside am I not trusting, right?
yeah,
And I think for us, it's definitely around the emotions.
yeah.
It's definitely it's like,
And I think heart as well.
oh yeah,
The hard stuff for me. I remember again that's why I'm very partial to this city as well, because I think having put roots down has allowed the self-preservation to relax. So I didn't have to. At some point I could just go a little bit beyond, and I started yoga, and again at the beginning, maybe that was maybe 12, 15 years ago, and there were a couple of postures that were heart opening. Couldn't do them, hated them, like vociferously expressing myself. I hate this posture. Yoga teacher, can we do another one? Can you give me another one? Can you give me an alternative? Really, really didn't like it. And I think what you were saying is that the trust, you were saying we don't trust others. There's parts of us that we don't trust. I think also because you don't you don't allow yourself to know your inside to the depth that the inside, to the potential depth that the inside has. You go level 2, you don't, because 3 is already like so scary, man. You know, um. So if you don't know 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all the rest of it, how can you trust yourself?
right.
Either there's parts of it that you can't see, you don't know how you're going to react, you don't know that perhaps that's an inner voice or an inner message, or that's just the how you react to a certain situation. And I think that's how I see the 2 things tied, that with not willing to go too deep, and thus not willing to know yourself, and thus leaving zones that are untapped. You're untapping your own resource center. You're not tapping it to its full potential.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something that was so important, making a distinction between the heart and the emotions, the heart area, because the emotions are one thing that we feel on the inside, but the heart area, which it has some overlap with emotions, no doubt, but the heart area in general, and I don't have enough time on an episode. I have to do that on a whole separate episode to explain that, but it's about deep connection, right? And
Yeah,
so it's a deep connection with other people, but also a deep connection with ourselves. And like you saying, not being able to do that pose in yoga, those different ones that were heart opening, is because as sevens, generally, we haven't, it takes us time to really go down and be like, what is this? Oh my goodness.
yeah,
Oh, woo. And it does transform and make your body feel totally different. It's like, whoa, this is
yeah,
really, it's a
yeah.
new space. It's really like, you feel like a novice. It's like,
Yeah, yeah. And I do think that it does help having that environment to help. It's like a seven needs
yes.
somebody to hold their hand. And again, an example that on the course that we did, it was via Zoom. So, it is what it is. However, at some point we did a panel and we closed each panel with a song. We did the number, we did the panel, we did the theory, we did the song. And at one point, they played a song that was from a local artist who was singing in Afrikaans. So don't understand a word. They explained it a little bit, but then of course, you don't. I got a couple of words that they had translated it, and then they put the song on. And then, of course, I couldn't remember what they said that the song was about. So I just listened to the song. And remember, this is via Zoom. And the singer is actually one of the other students in the course, and they showed the video of him that he had recorded singing. Melton, I just bawled my eyes out, like
Mm,
bawling and bawling and bawling. And this like the beauty of the song, or I don't know what it was. I couldn't understand the words, And
right.
I have to say, it wasn't, it was kind of an 80s kind of song. It wasn't a symphony or anything, but the effect that it had. But had I not been in that group, had I not been also in the safety of my room behind a screen,
Right.
again, maybe it's different in live, but I think the fact that I knew that it was okay to show the others my emotion. I knew that it was okay. I was safely in my room behind a screen, and I let it all out, and it was amazing, but it was not pleasant. I did not like, the pressure in my head, the eyes, the tears coming down, the thing that it does into your stomach. It was not a nice experience, and I don't enjoy it. I don't thrive, but it was beautiful.
Right.
There's this two, there's this dichotomy as well. I mean, I connected that for me. I thought about this because it was building on what you said about the heart connection. I really felt I could connect to this other student through his song, although I didn't understand anything. And so it was a pure love connection. Never met this guy, never seen him in person. But I don't think it comes naturally to a seven, like it might come to another heart type, maybe, where they live that, they live for that almost. I allowed myself to live that. And I'm glad, it was a beautiful experience, but it wasn't nice. It wasn't.
Yeah, I agree. We have to give ourselves permission to cry and to allow other people to happen in a space where other people can see it. I
Yeah.
know coming to that realization, I don't remember exactly when, but I just remember being like, it's okay. You have tear ducts for a reason. It's fine. You're not less than if you cry. It's not a weakness. You're moved right now, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And I
Yeah.
remember talking to myself mentally, like, it's okay. Like literally, it's like it's okay. It's like, oh, I guess I can. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And learning to be okay with that. Ooh.
Yeah. For me, it's also that connection with the body. Again, being a head type, it's, what happens to your body is okay. It'll leave, at some point. The pressure in your head will go away. The funny things in your stomach will go away. The fact that you're tired after having cried will go away. I think there's that pain element as well. it's painful, it's bodily painful to live an emotion. And I think as a 7, you don't necessarily go towards pain willingly. It's not something that you
Not
choose.
emotional pain.
Yeah.
Not physical. I mean, I ran track. And so when I first read the Enneagram, I was like, oh, please, I go towards pain.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Not real deep emotional. I don't run towards it. No.
No.
I'm working on that. I'm in a space where I recognize it way more and I'm able to sit with it a little bit more, but it is so far from easy. It's ridiculous, like.
And also there's so much, I don't know about you, but so much anticipation. I know that it's going to be painful when, my son leaves. So I start preparing myself. I will feel this, I will feel that, and you start living it out in your head. But
Yes.
it's you're like, I don't have to live it. I don't have to live the real thing. And that's a challenge. We were saying, what the challenge is to stop making your scenarios, or even if you have to make your scenarios that you can't stop yourself, or you need it to reassure yourself, then when the thing happens, let it hit you at the depth that it will hit you.
Try to be present in that moment.
Exactly. Even if you've had it in your head and you prepared yourself and you knew it was going to happen, you knew you were going to have some tears, or, you were going to cry for the whole afternoon, then cry for the whole afternoon, not just 20 minutes.
Exactly. Breathe through the tears, as a teacher told me one time when I told her
Yeah.
about Max. But she was like, I need you to breathe through the tears. Because I was like, they came to my eyes. She was like, no, I need you to breathe through them and let them roll. I was like, oh, okay. That sounds fun. Not.
Yeah.
So I have a question. What has been most helpful to you on your Enneagram growth journey?
Well, I have to say, since discovering, and this is true, I'm not saying it because I'm on the podcast, but discovering you and the Art of Growth, these 2 podcasts, have really kind of set the tone to how I've been growing with the Enneagram. Because books are books. Do you know what I mean? Like I've got my I've got the greats, the must-haves, and I'll go in and out. But without having a community in town, then it's a little bit flat. Then it becomes theoretical, and I think the Enneagram isn't a theoretical. It has theory, but it's about the people, and especially from the narrative tradition, where it's really about listening to the others, because they tell you what it's like. They tell you what living from that number means. So the panels really have helped, that have made it come alive. And the podcast, podcasts, I've looked around also for different podcasts. And then it becomes then 2-7ish, like I've got 100 podcasts, like 55
Right.
podcasts. I'm like, no, stick with the 2, and follow them. Like, where do they go? Who do they connect with? That has helped. Seeing the Enneagram in action rather than just in a book. Yes, I can play around trying to type people, sure, but that's not it. So really, podcast has helped. Having a partner that has a common language and a common interest, that has also helped. A couple of our friends as well are into it, and they master, they master the main principles. So you can still, you can play around with them as well, and so that has helped as well. What else? I don't know. I think also the Enneagram does the work itself. Like I was saying at the beginning, once you're in, you can never leave. You once you see, you cannot unsee. So everything helps. You hear somebody say something, and you think, and then a piece fits in. And I tell you what this is telling me about. What has helped is helped listen. That's also a thing that 7s don't do very much of. They don't listen so much because they're so busy speaking. And I think the Enneagram has taught me to listen, because people, when they speak, they're telling you, they're giving you the clues. They're giving you the clues to where they lead from. And so once you start with the Enneagram, you just start listening to people. And then you go even beyond the Enneagram. Then it doesn't really matter if they're a 5 or a 6 or a wing, a 3-wing or 5-wing. Who cares? Listen to them. They're telling you about themselves. And so I think that's, I would call another piece in maturity, in kind of maturing, in getting in the process of maturing. The Enneagram has given me another piece.
I wanted to add something because it just came up for me as you were speaking, talking about how the Enneagram just stays with us and along the piece of like as a 7 and emotions. This past weekend, I was at a virtual vow renewal. Dr. Egerton had her vow renewal with her husband, and he said these words, which were like the best vows I've ever heard, like the best little statement I've ever heard in a vow. He says, I vow to continue to do my inner work. So I was like, oh my, that was like the best line that I've ever heard in a vow. I know some people
Yeah,
didn't get it who were there because, you know, they don't know Enneagram language and stuff, but that is the most powerful to me statement someone can make,
yeah,
like in a relationship. It's like, I vow to keep doing my inner work so I'm my best for you and
yeah.
myself. Woo!
Yeah, yeah. I read somewhere one of these memes that go around was I will take care of me for you and you take care of you for me instead of I take care of you and you take care of me. And I thought that was a wonderful way of stating that love and that care that I do have for you, but it starts with taking care of myself first so that I am your best self for you.
Oh yeah, because I can go into that for quite a while, but I'm not going to. What advice would you give someone in like a type 7 structure that would help guide them? Say, for instance, they were you 5 years ago. What is some advice you would give them to help kind of guide them along the path?
So the first thing that everybody says, is meditation, quiet, and da, da. It's really difficult as a 7 to sit quietly for, 20 minutes. And that's minimum. For me, for example, what has helped has been these daily bike rides. So it's a movement. You're outside, there's beauty out there. Sometimes I'm with a friend, sometimes I'm not. And that for me is that form of coming back to earth. While you're biking, you have to be present because there could be a pebble and you can fall over, or there'd be a stick on the road, or a dog. Early in the morning, a lot of people walking their dogs without the leash, and so suddenly the dog could go towards you. So you have to keep your senses present. And I think that helps a lot of 7s coming back down to the body, to what is happening in the moment, to your senses as well, because we can so go into our heads. And sometimes I think that going into our head is it's almost a self-preservation thing in itself. It's so beautiful. One of the things that I love doing when I finish the day and I go to bed is like, oh, I'm going to go into my head. I'm going to think all these things that I haven't thought about during the day. So any activity, again, as a 7, I think activities is where it's at, but an activity that gets you in it, playing an instrument, or going biking, going running, something like that. And if it could be on your own, even better. If it's a solo playing or solo riding, or then that's what I would have told myself 5 years ago, 6 years ago. If I had really carved out those moments in movement instead of putting pressure on you. You should be meditating. You can't meditate. You're always doesn't matter. You can meditate on your bike and it's the same effect. And then use that meditation prompt throughout the day. Come back. Because often we're the best multitaskers. I can, in the kitchen, for example, oh my God, I could be preparing 3 meals at the same time while boiling the water for something else, while chopping this. And then, oh yeah, I just opened the fridge and I remember that tomorrow I have to prepare a meal, so I'll get that out. So it's not that, just like one thing at a time. Come back, and then, you can still do the lunch for tomorrow, put the vegetable there, and then, but you'll do it afterwards. You don't have to cut it all the while the water's boiling and the sauce is simmering, and you've just put the pan so that you can cook the pasta in. So I think that prompt to try and reduce the amount of things that you do at the same time, and use it as a skill. You use it as a thing that you revert to if you absolutely have to. But there's so many times that you don't really, you just do it because you can. So I think that's what I would tell myself. And then the last thing is perhaps speak less. I know this has all been about me speaking the whole time, But I wish I told myself that a few years ago. It's almost, sometimes I feel that as a 7, my brain comes online when my mouth goes. It's like my mouth comes in first and then the brain comes online. And my idea takes shape when it's said, not before it's said. And I've seen the frustration in the people I work with when I used to do that tremendously. I mean, I still do it, but I do it so much less. I'm like, write it down, or don't say it, or really literally just don't say it. Point. What would happen if you just didn't say it? Maybe you said it later, or maybe there's no need. Maybe if you don't say it, somebody else will say it. So that allowing also for some silence and for other people, not take over too much. I think these are things that I would say. But Milton, just to reassure people, it's not done in a wanting to put other people down. It's that fuel, that I'm so excited, I've got this idea, and I want you to tell it, and tone it down. Tone it down. Maybe it's not that great, that idea. Think about it, develop it first, and then maybe you want to share it. So allow for that time, that space in between.
It's kind of like we have a great recipe and we started cooking, to use your analogy, like something that we baked, but we didn't fully bake it before we pulled it out. I was like, look what I'm making. And they're like, what is that? It's going to be great. And they're like, I don't know what this is. It's half baked. They're like, ah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
sitting on it and actually, I love everything you just said, because those are definitely things that I know well and true. And has been a part of my journey, no doubt.
And just me and you, Milton, I mean, how different are we? And we're still connecting on this stuff. Like, this is going to be a podcast, but I can see you now and you're nodding at everything I say, but our backgrounds are so way different. Yeah.
So different, but we internally, our type 7, oh my goodness, the stuff you say sometimes, I was like, she lives my life, like just in a different country, in a different body, that she lives my life.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited. I'm so grateful, thankful, and honored for you to be on here. And I loved how, I think if people really listen to the episode, because this might end up being 2 episodes, like they really hear how, like, we start really excited, then we get closer and closer to our heart as we speak to people. Like the longer we speak to them, if we trust them mentally a little bit more, we speak more. So, and I love how you did that throughout this episode. There were these beautiful things that we talked about, and then you drove down even closer to the heart and you showed a little bit, and that was absolutely incredible and beautiful.
I think it also speaks for you. I mean, I feel very comfortable. I feel that I can trust you. You speak my language. I've told things on this podcast that I don't normally share. And I think I've also done it as an experiment. It's like, what happens if I open up a little bit more? What happens if I tell somebody that I've met only twice things that I would normally just keep hidden? And it feels okay. It was a little bit scary. Maybe that's the sexual instinct coming in. Yeah, come on, you could do this. Go ahead, share yourself, broadcasting. So I think once you see the Enneagram in action, I think the Enneagram does its magic. It allows you to blossom slowly a little bit, because you know that it's okay. You know that you I don't know if you gain confidence, but I don't know if I would say it in those terms, but like you become a little bit more daring, see what happens, and it's okay.
I totally agree with that. And thank you for that. I'm glad, you felt that you were able to express that, which is awesome, which is also, it's a testament to the inner work you're doing. That's the thing too. You don't get to a point where you're like, I'm gonna take this little, inner risk real quick and see what happens,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, just hearing you say those things, I think was pretty incredible to hear you do that and be able to share where you've shared from today.
But also with the Enneagram, I just thought about this. At the end of last year, I was looking for some course, something, anything that would get me to learn a little bit more about the Enneagram. So I looked around here, I looked in different countries, then it was COVID, and then I couldn't do the, okay, so I do, in the States, there's plenty of stuff, but the time zone, and again, as a self-pres, I mean, Milton, it's 10 o'clock here, this is way past my bedtime, but my
Oh,
seven,
right.
my seven is like, no, this is too exciting, come on, you could do this, tomorrow, it's okay, you'll put the alarm clock a little bit. By the way, self-pres, you do not put the alarm clock because that's the limit. Like I naturally get up at the
Mm-hmm.
same time because if I had the alarm, that'd be too much pressure. But I still get up early. Anyway, so back to the story so I was looking here, looking there, and then I found one course in the States that could have worked with a timetable, but it didn't feel, it didn't, nah. And then at the same time, I was trying to get support for the course at work because it was my turn. In the team, we always have, you can ask for extra education or, courses and stuff. So it came to be my turn. So it's like, can I get this? Can I get that? What can I do? And then just without, again, I can only explain it as the holy plan. I end up finding the one in South Africa, which I immediately signed up to because it was an intro weekend. Immediately love it. And then the next day at work or the day before, or the couple of days afterwards, my hands, I swear to you, Melton, it was my hands who write the email, 2-part email to my line manager saying, this is a course and this is how it could help me at work. And then the second email, more details. If you need, here are more details. Normally, how, you write an email, then you sit on it, then you think, then you maybe change the structure. Nothing. I showed it to a colleague. She was like, perfect. This says exactly what you need to say. So I send it. Eventually, it goes to HR, in the system. In the meantime, I've already booked in my work calendar, my personal calendar, all the dates, just in case. I didn't think about it. It wasn't like I wasn't doing it. Was my hands were doing it.
Right.
My hands were blocking my agenda. And then eventually my line manager said, yes, the course has been accepted. And of course, my agenda was already full. I'd already changed the date of an event that I had, that could have fallen into the Enneagram weekend, but I postponed into another weekend. But again, it was that feeling of I didn't do it. It got done. Like you said, the first question is, how did the Enneagram find me? That's how it found me. It doesn't feel like I orchestrated it. I made this happen.
You
Some
didn't.
people say, yeah, great. It was your enthusiasm. It was your initiative. It was, yes, I obviously, I Googled all the schools and I found all the courses. But the beauty when you start listening is that you hear these moments of things just planning out, and they happen by, when it's the right time, and then tuck, 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 everything just falls into place, one thing after the other.
You keep saying incredible things, and I don't know if people understand. I know sevens do. Like, there's a part of us that wants to plan everything out to go have fun and be exciting. But there's when we start doing our inner work and how the Enneagram works, what you were speaking on is a deep component of the holy plan and how, like, you can't really explain it with words because it is more of an experience than like something I can just say, oh, this is what happened. And so I love that because it's hard to speak to, but it is an experience that, like, things are unfolding, like you said, and falling into place without me having to put all this crazy effort into trying to make things happen.
Exactly. Exactly. And I wouldn't know how to do it again. Do you know what I mean? Like,
because you can't do it.
Yeah, you can't.
It just happens.
It just happens. And it was the same. And it was the same when I separated. It was, you knew things were not going right. There were problems, but you think, yeah, but then no, but da 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 da. So you drag it on a little bit more, another month, another year, and then the hand picked up the phone, and called the lawyer and said, no, we need to do something here. But the hand did it. It wasn't me.
Right.
And then things started falling into place again. So I think these were the two big occasions where I really felt that it is done, it will be done.
A deeper intelligence.
Yeah, exactly.
Much deeper intelligence than we normally would associate with ourselves and doing stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a International Enneagram Association global board member now.
Wow, congratulations. Is that new?
Yeah, thank you. And so I'm going to look and see what affiliate chapters they have, because they have them around the world, but see if any are some that you may want to be a part of that are in the international area. Because there are some, I'm new, so I'm learning them.
Yeah.
But if there are some, I want to be able to send them to you so that you can take a look at them.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's some activity, very little in Italy, some activity in Spain, a bit in France, some in Germany. But again, I'm also new to scouting the countries around. I know there's some in England. One of the courses that I looked at would have been going to England, because they're like pods, they're like little hubs,
Right.
like little Enneagram hubs around the world. But I don't know that territory well, so absolutely, I would appreciate that.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Can I ask you a question?
go ahead.
Yeah. So what has the Enneagram sort of done for you? Like, how has that affected your life? Like, what has changed, and how is it,
Everything.
yeah, opened a new world for you?
I mean, literally everything you just said. Like, my career is based around the Enneagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a podcast, I have a business, I coach, I consult, I facilitate, all around the Enneagram, like as a career. But larger than a career, like, it has transformed my life in so many ways. Like, the inner work that I've been able to do to heal myself in a lot of different ways, and to notice what's going on, monumental shifts that I couldn't even explain fully in words. Like when we were talking before, some of the different parts that it has helped me to develop. It has helped in relationships with other people. It has helped in the connection with myself. It has helped with getting in contact with the truth about all the components of myself compared to the narrative like I created in the past. Everyone has these different narratives to help us get through life, or we construct it based on our personality type. But to be able to deconstruct those narratives and then be okay with more along the lines like, oh no, you're just scared. That's just fear.
Yeah.
Oh, that right there. Oh, that's actually fear. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
dang, it is fear in it.
Yeah.
Those things have really transformed my whole life. So it is, there's not a component of my life that has not been touched by this. Every single ounce of my growth in my work has been touched by the Enneagram in some way.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I'm able to connect to my heart and like really, get to really know people and really know myself, like, and be okay with emotions. Yeah, like these things, I
Yeah.
could talk about it for a long time, but we had to talk about that offline. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also discovering that there are loads of emotions, more than just joy and sadness,
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah. And fear. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, you alluded to the sensations in the body earlier. You were talking about some examples, but being able to recognize them specifically where they are, and then kind of knowing how to kind of unravel them
Yeah.
and listen to them and see what intelligence or what it's trying to tell you. And oh my goodness, that stuff will just break you down, but it's healing.
One example that also comes up, and I'll stop after this one, because I know we could go on forever being 2-7.
We really could.
One of the things that I've learned as well is that when a situation happens and then you get that rush of emotion that you don't want to feel, and then my default would be to shut down. Now what I've learned is to put words to it and say to the person that you're with, the context that you're in, saying, something is happening to me. I don't know yet what it is. I need some time. And this is what I was saying, also the importance of having good people around you, trustworthy people, because they can wait. My partner, the worst that he's waited would almost a week, like 4 or 5 days. It's like, I still can't tell you, no, don't know what's happening. I'm still, it's like a minestrone. You can't tell the carrot from the zucchini, from the leek, from the whatever. And I need some time to pick them. And
Right.
what I've learned is that if the other person is okay, if the space is safe, you can say, I need to think about it. They leave you alone. They don't take it personally. You then go away, you separate your carrots from the zucchinis, from the aubergines, and from the leeks, and from the have you. Then you come back and then you tell them, okay, this is the carrot, this is the zucchinis, and so on. And I think that has in itself that ability to communicate, leave, you do your homework and come back. I'm in the twilight. I was in the twilight zone almost.
Right.
Now I'm in a new dimension when you're able to do that. You live your relationships, whether it's with your children, with your neighbors, with your coworkers, in a completely different way.
Woo!
Yeah.
We will end on that. That was you're just phenomenal.
Thank you. It was really fun. Marcella. Like literally speaking the same language across continent, across times. I love this new, Zoom thing or whatever platform we're using that allows for this connection. That sort of thank you, pandemic.
Yes, yeah, that has been a gift from it. And that's 7. We can glass half full anything, but it's true at the same time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. So just wrapping it up, if you do want people to reach you, how would they reach you if you want them to?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's okay to share an email address or LinkedIn profile. I mean, Marcella. Yeah, my name is Marcella Rispo, so you can find me on LinkedIn. And then from there, just a little message, and then maybe we can take the conversation further. Absolutely would love to connect with other Enneagram mad people. 7s or not, it doesn't really matter, but sort of common language people.
Awesome. That'll be in the show notes. So everyone, if you do want to connect with Marcella, you can go there, send her a note in LinkedIn, and just have an amazing conversation like we've been having eventually. And so just wrapping up, just a few things. The IEA Global Conference is coming up. I will be speaking on the discovery track, talking about head types, like what we were just talking about, 5, 6, and 7. I'll be doing it with the amazing Jerry Wagner. And so that's international, and it's going to be in the show notes, so you can join that as well, or you can check it out on my website, kaizencareers.com. You can get a discount code, Discovery4. Yes, that's a really good book. They can't see it, but she just put up one of the coolest books, Enneagram books, The 9 Lenses of the World by Jerry Wagner. It is deep and it is really rich, and I really love the book. And also on top of that, the Kaizen Complete Enneagram program, which starts August 5th. It's a 12-week program that I teach and facilitate the Enneagram, and we learn in communities with each other. We only have 14 slots left open. If you are interested, you can go to the show notes here. It's going to be KaizenAcademyThinkIfic.com. You can go there and actually sign up and become one of the few that will be in that group because we go deep and it's community-based and it's fun, but it's rich and it has a lot of amazing content with it. Besides that, I just want to thank you all for listening. So if you feel yourself getting triggered by something, take a deep breath, make a smart choice, and do it for the gram, the Enneagram, of course. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye. Do It for the Gram podcast editing and mixing is done by Saw and Sign. Information will be in the show notes.